Welcome and thank you for always joining us. We are looking at Form 2 Biology, Term 2 Examinations 2024 KCSE Revision Series. We are going straight to question number 1. Question number 1 reads, what is respiration? Respiration is simply the breakdown of glucose or food nutrients in our cells to release energy. Question number 2 or question number 1 Roman 2 states two importance of respiration. 1. It produces energy for transmission of nerve impulses. Number 2 produces energy for cell division. And number 3 produces energy for maintenance of body temperature. We move to question number 2, Roman 1. Name the blood vessel that supplies the cardiac muscles with its requirements. That blood vessel is coronary artery. Roman 2 of question number 2 part A. State the congenital defect of the above blood vessel resulting from the prolonged large intake of cholesterol in the blood, and in this case that defect is coronary thrombosis. Question number 2B. What is the importance of thicker muscular wall of the left ventricle of the mammalian heart? Remember, the muscles of the left ventricle are thicker than that of the right ventricle because of the generation of high pressure or sufficient pressure with which blood is pumped to the body tissues. And in this case, we are talking about the fattest tissues of the body. Question number 3. Question number 3. Question number 3, part A, Roman 1. Name the respiratory surface in insects. Gaseous exchange is actually through the tracheals. Roman 2, state any one feature that adapts the structure named in A, Roman 1 above. Roman 2, state any one feature that adapts the structure named in A, Roman 1 above to its functions. We are talking about characteristics of respiratory surfaces, and in this case, one of the characteristics is that they are moist to dissolve diffusing gases. Number 2, tracheals are highly branched to increase surface area for diffusion of gases. Part B, why are the fish gills highly vascularized? Number 1, that is so for rapid diffusion of gases. Number 2, to maintain a steep diffusion gradient for efficient diffusion of gases. We move to question number 4, A, Roman 1. What would happen if a person secreted less ADH in full? It means antidiuretic hormone. Number 1, there will be production of large amounts of urine, a condition known as diuresis. Roman 2, name the condition described in A, Roman 1 above. This particular condition, we call it diabetes insipidus. B, what is the role of loop of Henle in osmosis? It is actually osmoregulation. 5, part A, name the products of anaerobic respiration in plants. Remember, anaerobic respiration is the oxidation of food without the use of oxygen, and therefore the products of anaerobic respiration are alcohol, carbon dioxide, and energy. Part B, question number 5. Give any two economic importance of the products named in A above. Remember, the economic importance of anaerobic respiration, number 1 is brewing, that is in the making of alcohol and also in baking. We move to question number 6. Question number 6 is on the phloem tissue. The diagram below illustrates part of the phloem tissue. We have part A where we are supposed to name the parts X and Y. X represents the sieve pore and Y represents the cytoplasmic strands, also known as filaments. B. State the function of the part labeled Z. In this case, Z has numerous mitochondria that provides energy for translocation. We move to question number 7. Question number 7. Name the monosaccharides that make up the disaccharides below. Remember, monosaccharides are the simplest carbohydrates, and when you combine two monosaccharide molecules, you get a disaccharide. And an example of a disaccharide is sucrose, which is formed by linking glucose and fructose. Lactose, which is formed by linking glucose and galactose. And finally, we have maltose, which is formed by linking two monosaccharide molecules. And in this case, maltose is formed by linking two glucose molecules together. Question number 8. State one use of the following excretory products of plants. Roman 1, we have latex. Latex is used in making items such as we have rubber shoes, of course. We have gloves. We have mattresses, etc. We have colchicine. This one is used in medicine. Actually, it's medicine. This is medicine for treating inflammation and also pain. In other words, it is used to reduce pain, especially on people that have joint problems. We move to question number 9b. Given the equation below, calculate the respiratory quotient, that is the RQ. So to get RQ, you look at the carbon 4 oxide produced, you divide by the amount of oxygen used. And when you look at the reaction, we are using 6 moles of oxygen, which are producing 6 moles of carbon 4 oxide. And in this case, the amount of carbon 4 oxide produced will give us 6 moles divided by the number of moles of oxygen used, which is 6. And when you divide 6 by 6, you get exactly 1. So you get exactly 1. And to be more precise, sometimes you can be asked the kind of food substrate that gives us the RQ of 1. These are actually carbohydrates. Carbohydrates always will give us an RQ of 1. Question number 10. State the importance of the following. Number 1, reversed stomatal rhythm in desert plants. This helps plants to conserve water during the day, allowing maximum gaseous exchange at night. Actually, reversed stomatal rhythm is a characteristic feature that helps plants to reduce the rate of Roman 2, closing the stomata on hot, dry, sunny days. This is to reduce the amount of water loss by transpiration. And then Roman 3, how does wind affect transpiration rate? Wind is moving air, and therefore windy conditions blow away water from the leaf surface, which in turn increases the transpiration rate. We move to question number 11. Question number 11 reads, the diagram below represents the pathway of water from the soil into the plant. And we have been given the root hair cell with unnamed parts T. We have R and also S. The part labeled T is our xylem vessel because water moves from the root hair through the cortex, then up to the xylem vessels where it is conducted up the plant, and therefore part R is the root hair, We have S, which is the endodermis, and of course we have T, which is the xylem vessel. We go to Roman 2, state two ways in which the structure labeled R is adapted to its function. We have already mentioned that R is our root hair cell, and number one, it is narrow and elongated to increase the surface area for absorption of water and mineral salts, and number two, it is very thin to reduce the diffusion distance, that is the distance moved by water molecules before they reach the xylem vessels where they are conducted up the plant. We move to question number 12. Question number 12. A student added equal amounts of blood to equal volumes of salt of different concentrations. She observed and counted the red blood cells at the beginning of the experiment and at the end of the experiment. The results were as shown below. We have setup A and B. The concentration of the salt in A is 0.1 molar, while the concentration of B was 0.01 molar. At the beginning, setup A was showing 500. Then after 30 minutes, the number of cells actually were 500, and B, it's 500 and the number has reduced to 250. That tells you the concentration in setup A, that is the concentration of the blood, is equal to that of the solution, and therefore we are supposed to account for the results in setup A. We realize that the concentration of the salt was isotonic to that of the cytoplasm of the red blood cells, hence there is no change. Why? Because the concentration is the same, it is isotonic. Setup B, most of the cells hemolyzed due to hypotonic salt solution. That is why we have 500, and after 30 minutes we have 250, meaning the cells absorbed the salt solution and then of course they bursted. Question number 13. Question number 13 is a question on dentition. 13. Below is a dental formula of certain organisms. Use it to answer the questions that follow. We have incisors, the upper ones are 0, 3 in the lower jaw, 0 on the upper, 1 on the lower jaw. Then the premolars we have 3, 2. Then the molars we have 3, 3. We are supposed to calculate the total number of teeth in the mouth of the organisms. What we usually do, we add all the teeth and we multiply it by 2. In this case, if you take 0 plus 0 plus 3, you get 3. 3 plus 3, you get 6. 6 plus 3, you get 9. 9 plus 2, you get 11. 11 plus 1, you get 12. 12 plus 3, you get 15. And if you take 15, you multiply by 2, you get 30 teeth. You can as well count and multiply everything here by 2, and in total you are going to get 30. We move forward. Roman 2, you name the organisms. If you look at the absence of the upper incisors and the canines, that tells you that these organisms are herbivores, those that feed on grass or vegetation. Roman 3, identify the mode of nutrition of the organisms. Since these organisms feed on plants, their mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. Heterotrophic means they do not make their own food and instead they feed on already manufactured food. Question number 14. 14. Give a reason why glucose does not normally appear in urine even though it is filtered in the mammalian Bowman's capsule. This is because the glucose is actively reabsorbed back to the blood system within the proximal convoluted tubule. B. Which hormones are involved in the salt-water balance in the human body? We have two hormones, and in this case we have ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone, and also another hormone we call aldosterone. Question number 15. 15. State two functions of blood other than transport. Apart from transport, blood performs a very important role in regulation of body temperature. Number 2, regulation of the pH of the body fluids. Number 2, defense against disease-causing microorganisms. This is microorganisms. Microorganisms, actually we call them pathogens. Then of course prevents bleeding. Also we can say it enhances clothing, what we call clothing of blood. We move to question number 16. But before we move to question number 16, part B of question number 15 says, name one defect of the circulatory system in humans. Some of these defects actually affect the blood vessels. We have coronary thrombosis, we have varicose veins, we have atherosclerosis, etc. Question number 16a. State two ways in which the human body is naturally protected against harmful bacteria. 1. It has antibodies and white blood cells in the blood that kill or destroy pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing microorganisms. B. State one way in which the composition of blood in the pulmonary artery and that of pulmonary vein differ. And in this case, we are going to look at the components in terms of what they carry. Remember, we have the higher concentration of oxygen in pulmonary vein. Remember, all veins carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary vein, which carries oxygenated blood, or blood that has a high concentration of oxygen, whereas pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood. And in this case, the major component in this blood is carbon dioxide. So in other words, to bring out the difference is that we have a higher concentration of oxygen in pulmonary vein and a higher concentration of carbon dioxide in pulmonary artery. Question number 17. Describe the path taken by carbon dioxide released from the tissues of a cockroach into the atmosphere. 1. We have the hymocoil, which is the general body cavity. From the general body cavity, it goes to the trachea. Then from the trachea, it goes to the ostia. And then lastly, to the spiracles. And from the spiracles to the atmosphere. You have two marks. One mark is for the naming, and another mark is for the arrows. Question number 18. 18. Form 1 student set up an experiment shown below to investigate certain physiological process. Name the setup. The setup was left for 30 minutes. We can see in the beaker we have distilled water, and then of course inside the whisking tubing we have the sucrose solution. And when you look at distilled water and sucrose solution, whenever we have the water, that is one of the hints that the process being investigated is osmosis. Number 1, name the process under study. This is osmosis. B, state the expected results after 30 minutes. 1, the whisking tubing will become turgid. Why? Remember, the sucrose solution is in the whisking tubing, and therefore water will move into the whisking tubing by the process known as osmosis. The whisking tubing will become turgid, i.e. increase in volume, or simply bulge or become big. We can also use the word expand. Then C is where you're supposed to explain the observations in B above. Water molecules from the beaker move into the whisking tubing, by osmosis. And remember, the whisking tubing is semi-permeable, making it to increase in volume. Remember to subscribe and also to help us share the link. We continue. Number 19, explain why it is important to stain specimen to be observed under a light microscope. The reason why we stain it is to make the features more clearer or more distinct, and therefore this is because different structures absorb stains differently, hence become more distinct. We can also use the term clearer or visible. Then question number 20, what is wilting? We say the rate of water absorption, or it is where the rate of water absorption is more than the water loss. Actually, water loss can also be replaced with the term transpiration and the plant troops. Question number 21. State the significance of the following steps while testing for the disaccharides in food sample. Remember, this is under food test. 1. We have A, addition of dilute hydrochloric acid. This is to hydrolyze, or we can say break down disaccharides, also known as reducing sugars into monosaccharides, which are reducing sugars. This is how we break disaccharides into monosaccharides in the laboratory, but in our bodies, it is actually broken down by enzymes. Then B, why do we add sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate? This is to neutralize the hydrochloric acid that was actually used to break down non-reducing sugars to reducing sugars. Question number 22. Roman 1, that is part A, Roman 1, name the fluid produced by sebaceous glands. This fluid is known as sebum, which is an antiseptic. Roman 2 asks about the functions. State 2 function of the fluid named in A, Roman 1 above. In other words, we are supposed to state the functions of sebum. It is an antiseptic and therefore kills pathogens or disease-causing microorganisms. And number 2 makes the skin hair softy, or we can use the term oily. B, explain Malfithian layer of the skin, or how the Malfithian layer of the skin is adapted to perform its functions. Number 1, it contains actively dividing cells which give rise to the granular layer. Number 2, contains melanocyte cells that produce melanin. Melanin gives the skin its color, also protects the skin against ultraviolet rays. Question number 23, outline 3 functions of the colon. Remember, this is the large intestine. Number 1, absorption of water takes place in the colon. Number 2, packaging of indigestible food material to form feces. Number 3, secretion of mucus. And number 4, absorption of mineral salts, among other functions. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and also help us to share the link to the rest of the family that have not seen our video. So it's a pleasure always serving you.